On this episode of the Whiskey Tornado, we review Jefferson's Aged at Sea Rye. It's Voyage 26. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Whiskey Tornado. I'm your host, Lance, and today we have Jefferson's Aged at Sea Rye. It's Voyage 26. Now, I have not reviewed a Jefferson's Aged at Sea product since the start of this channel, so I'm excited to do that today. I saw this in the store. It had all the marketing words that draw people to whiskey at the current time. It's aged at sea. It's double-barreled, it's toasted, and it's a rye. So I got pulled in, and I bought this one. But I'm excited to review it for you guys today. Now, in the past, I've never really went out and searched for Jefferson's Aged at Sea voyages because the ones I've had were a little thin. And quite honestly, at $90 is what I usually find them for, $80 to $90. There just seems like too much for the proof point. And for a non-age stated product. But this one did catch my eye. It's got, again, all those marketing buzzwords. So I went ahead and bought it. And I found it for $64, so much better price than $70, $80, $90 I usually see it for. This particular voyage is non-chill filtered, and it comes in at 96 proof. Again, aged at sea. It's a rye, double barrel rye whiskey. On the side, it does say a product of Canada. So I can assume that we are talking about Canadian rye whiskey here that is double barreled, and in one of those barrels is a toasted barrel. For those of you new to the Whiskey Tornado, I will quickly explain our scoring system. If you've heard this a million times, use the timestamps below and just jump ahead to the section that you want to hear me talk about. Here on the Whiskey Tornado, I have 7 categories. I review 0 to 1, 0.5 being average. We talk about the availability and the appearance of the product. Those 2 categories are handicapped. Then we move into the important stuff and we talk about the nose, palate, finish, body, and value. I really like to geek out on whiskey, so we really break these down and do a deep dive into each product I review. At the end, we add all those scores up. Any score of 3 or better is bar worthy. Any score of 4 or better is bunker worthy, so buy extra just in case the bourbon you love is no longer made. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into our first handicapped category, and it is appearance. Now, as someone that was a marketing major in college, I have to give Jefferson's Aged at Sea major props because the marketing behind this product is really cool. The fact that they're sourcing whiskey, putting it on a container ship, sending it across the equator, and then letting you get on their website and see where your particular voyage went, what the seasons were like, what the weather conditions were like, what the storm conditions were like, is really pretty cool. And adds a little bit of story and background to the whiskey you buy. So as a marketer, you're going to be drawn to the product and have a little bit more connection with it. Now, as far as the appearance goes in the bottle, I just think it's okay. It's average. It's not much to it. They do have above Jefferson's a big picture of the container ship. It does say Ocean Aged at Sea. And on this one, it says rye, double-barreled rye whiskey, non-chill filtered. On the back is a map. So it's okay, but it's not anything special to me. The cork is thin, but they do use an actual real cork. I believe that's real. But again, just an average appearance, in my opinion. We're going to give the appearance a 0.5. All right, moving on to our second handicapped category, and that is availability. The good thing is I have never had a problem tracking down Jefferson's Ocean. So this particular one, I actually found early. It was at a Costco, but I'm sure these will be popping up everywhere. We're going to give the availability a really good score of a 0.8. All right, let's get on to the important stuff. Let's nose this. We're going to swirl it around a little bit and take a couple sniffs. The nose on this, really good. This has been opening up for about 10 minutes. Man, I'm really liking the nose on this. Lots of nice caramel right off the bat. A little bit of cinnamon. And tons of vanilla. There's also a little bit of a citrus note in there. Probably like, if I had to put my finger on it, probably like an orange marmalade. So it's got some of the like orange citrus, but with a little bit of spice. You know how sometimes in marmalade they got a little bit of spice added to it, a little bit of like baking spices. Man, that's what this is. The nose is really beautiful on this. So far I'm surprised because I tell you guys, I'm trying not to be biased, but Jeffersons Ocean, again, always came off a little bit thin and too many marketing terms. It's just too much BS for me to want to like, but I got to tell you, the nose on this is really, really nice. We're going to give the nose a 0.7. It's really good, guys. All right, moving on to the palate. What I usually do, guys, is just take 3 sips of this. I'll tell you what I'm tasting on the first sip, second sip, and third sip. So here we go. First sip was nice, but it wasn't super complex. I got nice caramel and then oak. But what I'm already digging about it is it's not your typical 95.5 rye that you get from MGP. There's so many ryes out there. All these companies are sourcing from MGP out of Indiana. A lot of them are starting to taste the same, and you get that kind of 95.5 rye where you get, you can get some spearmint, you can get some dill, lots of citrus, those kind of notes. This is not coming off like that at all because we're talking about Canadian whiskey. So, and normally I'm not a big fan of Canadian whiskey, but that first sip was pretty good. So let's go into the second sip here. Good balance of lots of vanilla there. Good balance of oak with the vanilla, with the caramel. Those toasted notes from the barrel are coming through in the form of like a toasted vanilla marshmallow. Really nice. And then on the back end, now I'm getting this like that, what I was picking up on the nose, that like orange marmalade is coming out as like a orange creamsicle, which is really nice. I'm digging that a lot. So good second sip. Let's go to the third sip here. Third sip, my brain's starting to wrap around this thing. It's starting to make sense. First sip was just oak, caramel. Second sip, lots of vanilla, and a little bit of orange on the back end. Now, on the third sip, now that I've got all those flavors in my head, it's coming off like a really beautiful, balanced rye, but it's coming off as a lot of like orange creamsicle, caramel orange creamsicle. I'm digging this, guys. This is pretty good. It's not super complex. It's very, very crushable. Good Lord. Like at what I say it was 96 proof, but it's non-chill filtered. It is coming off as crushable. You could really, really drink this, not have to think about it too much, but the flavors that are there are really nice. And it's a little bit different than what all these other companies are bottling when you're talking about just bottling the standard 95.5 MGP rye. I'm going to take a fourth sip. Yeah, really nice balance there. Finish isn't long, but nice, crushable, caramel orange creamsicle, if I had to describe it in the fewest words possible. I'm digging it. I wanted to hate on this, but I'm not going to hate on it. I'm going to give the palate a 0.7. All right, moving on to our next category, the finish. When we're talking about the finish on this, it's average to short. So I'm going to give the finish. Let me take one more sip here before I decide if I'm going to give it a 0.4 or 0.5. It's right on that line. it goes away pretty quick. I'd probably say the finish is a little less than average. We're going to give the finish a 0.4. All right, moving on to the body. Again, this is 96 proof, so a little less than what I typically like. I'm in that kind of like 107 to 111 range is my sweet spot for proof and body. This is 96 proof, so it is a little thin, but it is non-chill filtered, which helps add to the body of it. So we're going to give it just an average score. It's got some creaminess to it. It's got some good legs when you swirl it around the glass. Coats the palate, but it is a little thin. So we're just going to give it an average score of a 0.5. All right, moving on to our final category, and that is value. Now, I've got to give you a couple ranges because I did find this at Costco for $64. At $64, I am happy with it. I'm getting a little bit more than what I expected. So at $64, I would rate the value of this a little better than average at a 0.6. If you're finding it for $80, $90, it's below average, and we would be talking about a 0.3. So I'm going to give you guys two scores on this. If you get it for $64, which is the price I bought it at, the overall score would come out to a 3.65, making it bar worthy, and I think that's a really good score for this. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to give it that kind of rating. Past Jeffersons Ocean's batches that I've had just were a little thin, as this is, but didn't taste that good to me. They were not complex. This is actually a really good rye. Not complex, but very crushable. I love the flavors that are there. So I think a 3.65 is a good score for this. I would buy another bottle, and it's something I would reach for when I'm ready to sit down and have a glass of whiskey, and that's the thing that I'm curious about. Am I going to be reaching for these things on my bar, or is it a bottle that I buy that I never reach for and it just sits there and wastes shelf space? This is a bottle I would drink regularly and be really happy with. I also think it's a bottle, the newer you are into rye, I think this is a great beginner rye. If you haven't had a lot of ryes, I think you would really enjoy this because it is a crushable whiskey. Now, if you find it for that $80 to $90 price point, the value is going to drop, and this bottle would be a 3.35, 3.25, somewhere around there. So it still would be bar worthy, but you're pushing like almost not bar worthy as you get closer and closer to that 3 score. So it depends on the price, but if you can find it for that $64, even $70, $75, I think this is a great addition to the bar. It's got a great story behind it. If you have somebody that comes over that's newer into bourbon, you tell them the aged at sea story, and you can pull out the little diagram or get on the website and show them the voyage your specific bottle took. I think that's great. I think all of that adds to the experience of whiskey. As sometimes I want to hate Jeffersons Ocean, I really do, as a marketing professional, like the marketing behind it. Sometimes marketing makes me mad. In this case, it is kind of good. I just wish the price point on these were a little less. That $90 price tag is really steep. If these bottles were $60 to $70, I would be behind them all day long. When they start pushing that $90 price point at what is it, 96 proof, I don't know. It gets a little too much for me. But you can kind of justify the marketing behind it if they're putting these on container ships and sending them across the equator. That can't be cheap. So who knows? But for this particular bottle, I actually really enjoy it. I think it's worth it. I think it's bar worthy. If you see Jeffersons Ocean Aged at Sea, the Rye Voyage 26, I think it is a definite buy, especially at $65 to $75. All right, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what Jeffersons Oceans batches have you had or voyages have you had, and have you enjoyed them? Really be interested to hear in the comments what's your favorite Jeffersons Oceans batch that you've tried to date. Also, if you want any more information on Whiskey Tornado, just visit whiskeytornado.com. You will see links to merch, links to glassware, links to Patreon, links to future barrel picks, all those type things on whiskeytornado.com. All right, guys, I hope this helped you decide what to buy and what to leave on the shelves. Until next time, cheers, everybody.
Living in a